Good morning, and thank you for joining us today for the Wisconsin Department of Revenue My Tax Account New User webinar. My name is Gianna Schultz, and I am a lead in the Business Tax Unit in our Customer Service Bureau. Presenting today will be Tom Rabine, the Quality Assurance Coordinator in the Customer Service Bureau, and Nicole Buch, Customer Service Bureau. Among other things, today we're going to cover logging into my tax account, give an overview of key features of my tax account, and show you examples of filing and paying sales and use tax returns and withholding tax returns. We'll also walk through an example of filing a withholding tax reconciliation along with a W-2 and 1099 on my tax account. If you have any questions during today's webinar, please type them in the questions pane and an agent will reply to you individually throughout the webinar. If you have questions in the future or have questions that may require more time to research or answer, please go to our website or call or email the Wisconsin Department of Revenue Customer Service team. A recording will be available on the Wisconsin Department of Revenue training page shortly after the webinar. We've planned this webinar for about 1 hour. I'll turn it over to Tom to get us started.
Thank you, Gianna. And I'll add my welcome to the My Tax Account for New Business Users webinar. For today's webinar, we'll be working in a training and testing environment, and there may be some differences in screen appearance. Please be aware if you're working along in My Tax Account, you're in a live environment, and we ask that you don't submit any returns or requests that you complete in this webinar. If you do accidentally submit a return or request, please contact customer service at 608-261-5338 for assistance deleting the return or request. Before we log in, we'd like to point out some helpful resources you can access from the login page. First, you can ask Dory, our chatbot assistant, a My Tax Account question. Secondly, we have training videos available. Let me scroll down. And in the resources panel, there is a business videos link, and I'll click on that. The videos range from general, such as a My Tax Account overview, to such as how to file and pay sales and use tax. All right, let's return to the login portal. Also note that you can reset your password by following the Forgot Username or Password link, or to have your username emailed to you. All right, let's log into My Tax Account. We'd like to mention that although you may have until the last day of the month to file a return, it might be beneficial to try and log into My Tax Account ahead of time. That way, if you have any difficulty with receiving a security code, you then have time to resolve any issues before filing and paying taxes. Internal servers and the security settings of your business email system may delay or even prevent you from receiving the security code via email. If your business has such email filters, you'll want to add MTA support at wisconsin.gov as a trusted email address. Contact your computer support area or email your email provider for assistance. The email address again is mtasupport@wisconsin.gov. Please don't send questions to this email address, as this email box isn't monitored for responses. It's only used for electronic delivery of security codes. If this is your first time logging into My Tax Account, you would now be asked to set up a delivery method for your security code via text, email, or Authenticator app. If you have it set up to receive your security code as text or email, the default will be to send it via text. If you do wish to receive an email, click on the More Security Code Delivery Options link. Prior to clicking Confirm, we're going to check the box to trust this device. By doing so, a subsequent entry of a security code wouldn't be required unless you log in with a computer that you've never used before, or you've deleted your cookies. In our system, I can automatically populate a security code, which I've done, so I'll click on Confirm to continue logging in. Before we go over specific sections, just a couple of navigation tips, if you will. If I click on a link, for example, View Periods, and I want to return to what I'll call the home page, there really isn't a home button on this page. The home button is the words My Tax Account at the top of the page. So if you're somewhere in My Tax Account and you wish to return home, click on the words My Tax Account. Also, if you want to go back a page, and I'll use View Periods as my example here again, you can use the back arrow in your browser, or a lot of times there'll be a back arrow towards the top of the screen to return to the previous screen. All right, what we're going to do first is an overview of the major tabs on the home page. First, I'll click on the Favorites tab. So at this point, I don't have any favorites set up. So if there are a number of accounts available on my tax account and your responsibility is only to file the sales tax, for example, you can set it up as a favorite. I'll click on Manage, click on Sales Tax, and OK. And then when I log in, all I'll see is the Sales and Use Tax account from the Favorites tab. I'll still see all of the accounts from the Summary tab, but it's a little bit of a shortcut if you only use one of the accounts. For the purposes of the webinar, I'm going to reverse that. So we'll have all accounts showing from the home page. So the second tab that's available is the Summary tab, which most people use as their default. So from the Summary tab, you see a business tax registration. That's not specifically a tax, but this is where you can pay the $10 registration fee that comes up every 2 years, or if you're a newly registered business, you can pay the original $20 registration fee if that balance is still due. You'll notice here we have a sales and use tax account. And an important piece of information that it says here is that this particular account is a quarterly filer for sales and use tax. Likewise, for the withholding tax account, they are also a quarterly filer for the withholding tax. To the right of these accounts, you can see the functions that are available for each of these tax accounts. And what we're going to be clicking on a little bit later is File Pay View Returns as one of the options, because we're going to be filing a sales and use tax return and a withholding tax return as well. Next tab over is the Action Center tab. And when I click on that, it's about what you'd expect. You'll notice that there's some unread messages and unread letters that it's making you aware of. Next tab over is the Settings tab. And what you'll see on the Settings tab, or an important point, is for mail delivery, I currently have this set up as electronic delivery of mail. If you have this set up, in fact, I'll click on it. If you have this set up as paper, you can change that to electronic as the default to receive mail from the Department of Revenue electronically. And the next tab over is the More tab. And let's take a closer look at the More tab. And in the first panel underneath Payments and Returns, there's a link called Manage Payments and Returns. While this link sounds like it's where you would go for filing return, It's actually more useful for researching past payments or returns. We'll recommend for filing and paying a return to click on the specific account to file, and we'll look at an example of how to do that in a few moments. Request a payment plan is primarily used for accounts that are in collections, and likewise view payment breakdown. If you need to pay a real estate transfer fee, you can do that here. And the next link is view or cancel scheduled payments. And let's click on that. If you schedule a payment for a future date and it has not been processed yet, you can cancel a payment from this screen. Let's go back. The next panel is the letters panel. Now let's click on view letters. So this is where you go to view and or print your letters. And if you do have a sales and use tax account, this is where you can go to print off a copy of your seller's permit or a copy of your registration permit, for example. If they aren't here, you can certainly contact us and we can push them to the My Tax account for you to print those off. But those two documents are typically in the letters panel beneath that link, and you can print those off without contacting customer service. But if you need to, we'll certainly help you with that. Next panel is the messages panel. And let's go to view messages. And you'll see that there's some messages available to be read. And next we'll click on manage email subscriptions. If I click on that, you'll see that you can manage how you wish to communicate with the Department of Revenue. Let's go back. The next panel in the lower left is the submissions panel. And let's click on search submissions. Here's where you can search for all your submissions made via My Tax account. There are draft submissions which are saved but not submitted yet, pending submissions which are submitted but not yet processed, and processed and deleted submissions. At this point, we don't see any pending or draft submissions because we haven't made any of those yet. So we just see a processed and a deleted submission tab. So once you have pending submissions, then that tab will appear with those submissions. W-2 1099 submissions. Nicole will give you an example of what this looks like and how to submit a W-2 or 1099 from this link when she is discussing withholding tax with you a little bit later on in the webinar. From the names and addresses panel, let's click on manage names and addresses. And you'll notice here, it tells you what the legal name of the business is, and you can actually add a DBA from My Tax account. And after clicking on the addresses tab, you'll be able to add a location if you wish, or add a mailing address if you wish by account. Let's return to the home page. And from the home page, another important link is the Manage My Profile link in the upper right-hand portion of the screen. And once we click on that, the default is to go to the Profile tab. And underneath the Profile tab is what you'd expect from an online account. It's going to indicate your username, your name, the contact email address, and this is where you can go to change your contact email address to make sure that you're getting all of the notifications from the Department of Revenue. Here's where you can go to change your password, update your secret question, or to change the two-step settings for the two-step authentication, and I'll click on that. So if you need to update your phone number for receiving text, or you need to update your email address, you can do that here. To change it, you can just click on the X, you'll delete the old one, and then it will prompt you to enter in a new delivery method for receiving the security codes via email or text, or to set up an authentication app. Let's go back. The next tab is Action Center. And here again, you're alerted to that you have unread messages, and you can view those here. And next, let's go to the More tab. And there's a lot of stuff underneath the More tab, so let's take a little closer look at what these are. The first panel is Request Additional Access, and the first link there is Request Access to an Account. And let me give you a scenario where you would choose Request Access to an Account. This is where you would go to add access to an additional tax account from what you have currently in My Tax Account. For example, as a new business, you may just be registered for sales and use tax. As your business grows, you now need to hire employees. So you'd register for a withholding tax via the online registration on the Department of Revenue website. Once you've been assigned a withholding tax account, this is where you'd go to add the withholding account to your existing My Tax Account profile. So let's click on it. And to do that, you would click on Business Accounts. Next. And that will take you to the verification page. So we're going to ask you to verify a piece of information that proves that you're associated with the business and to prevent any security risks. So on this page, you'll click on the drop down and then choose an account that you currently have. In our example, it would be sales and use tax. And then to prove that you're associated with the business for verification purposes, we'll ask you to input a total tax due from a prior return. And here it gives you that information. And the amount should be from one of the 3 most recently filed returns. Or you can input a letter ID. And I'll click on the help link here. And you can choose a letter ID from one of these letters. For business tax, it would typically be the business tax registration greeting letter that you receive when you initially register for a business tax account. Another common one is a notice of estimated tax. The letter ID from that type of letter will also work. And once you put that information in, or one of these pieces of information in, you can click on Next and Submit, and you would immediately gain access to that additional business tax account in My Tax Account. So I'm not going to complete the submission right now. We're going to return to the More tab. So I'll exit out of there. The next link in the Request Additional Access panel is Request Access to a Third-Party Account. So this is where a third-party preparer would go to request access to your tax accounts. This could also be used by individuals that own multiple entities and would like to manage all of the entities under a single My Tax Account profile. The next panel is Payment Sources, and the link is Manage Payment Sources. Let's click on that. If you have a saved payment source, this is where you would go to delete that payment source if you change banks. You can also add a payment source here, but most of the time that will be done when you make the first payment, and we'll look at an example of that when we pay the sales tax after we file the return. Here again is another opportunity to view your messages and manage your email subscriptions. Let's go to the Manage Access panel. And the first link there is Manage My Access. Here you can change or delete access to a business tax account. Now, one of the things that you'll see here is you'll see what your access level is. And you'll notice that this particular user is the master account user for the My Tax account. If this says account manager, when I return to manage my profile, you may have less options here because a master account user has more options than an account manager. Let's take a look at manage my users access. This function really would only be used by a larger accounting firm. As an example, if they have 50 employees servicing 1,000 client accounts, they can create groups of clients and assign those groups to specific employee user accounts that they create. Let's go to manage other users access. So if you are the master account holder for the business, you can view all of My Tax accounts registered for the business and manage a user's access level. So you can delete their access if you wish or limit their access to specific business tax accounts. Let's return. And we'll go to manage third-party access. So again, if you are the master account holder for the business, you can manage the access for third parties that have access to your accounts. So you'll see here there is a third party that has access to the My Tax account that maybe we have hired to file and pay sales and use tax, for example. If you no longer need access to My Tax account, you can delete your profile, basically canceling your access. And here's one of many different places where you can go to close a business tax account. So if I wish to, for example, close my sales and use tax account, I could click on the close accounts link, choose a reason, and then I could choose the sales and use tax account and input a closure date to close the sales and use tax account from my tax account. Let's go back. Here again is that search submissions link that we saw earlier from the home page. And here's logon activity. If I click on that, it'll just give me the history of the activity for my logons. All right, let's return to the home page. And let's take a closer look at the sales and use tax account and file and pay a sales and use tax return. I'll click on File, Pay, View Returns. And this will be the jumping off point for filing and paying a sales and use tax return. Before we do so, I'd like to point out a couple of important links in the upper right-hand portion of the page. When I click on filing and payment history, it's going to give me that. So it'll indicate the amount of the return plus any penalties or interest and any payments that I've made. And you can also search by a specific time period. So if you just want to view the sales and use tax returns for, tax year 2023, you can input those search parameters and just get those results. View account attributes. This gives us the ID number, the account start date, and our filing frequency. Let's go back. Here's where you can file an appeal. So if you get, for example, a late filing penalty or fee, here's where you can go to appeal that penalty if you wish. You can do that electronically right from My Tax account. You can close an account. That'll look similar to what we saw just a few moments ago. You can request an extension to file here. Keep in mind a couple of things when filing for an extension. The request needs to be done prior to the due date and payment is still due timely. And here again is that same link that we looked at earlier. The viewer cancels scheduled payments if you wish to cancel a payment that is currently pending and not processed yet. All right, let's file a sales and use tax return. Now we're a quarterly filer, and technically this quarter isn't done yet, being the start of September, but we'll make believe that it's the post-quarter. This isn't due until the end of October, but for the purposes of the webinar, we'll still file and pay anyhow. So I'll click on File Now to file the ST12 return, which is what the sales and use tax return is called. And on this page, notice the filing tips. So there's a link for the ST12 video, which will walk you through a step-by-step of how to file the ST12, which is what we're going to be doing here. It's about 4 minutes long. There's a link to the form instructions on our website for the ST12. Common sales tax questions, it'll take you to that page on our website. And also the sales tax rate chart. It'll take you to that page on our website that will indicate the sales tax rates for municipalities and counties in Wisconsin. The first question is, do you plan to report zero on every line? Well, there is a scenario where if I didn't have any sales for this last quarter to report, even though it's zero, we want you to report an amount of zero. So if that's the case, I would choose yes and next. And you'll notice it just fills in all zeros. And the next step is submit. And that's all I would need to do in order to file a sales and use tax return in the amount of zero. But for the purposes of the webinar, let's input an amount. So we'll leave the default at no and click next. And let's put in an amount of sales, say 50,000. So lines 2, 3, 4, and 5 are subtractions. And your records would indicate what to put in for lines 2, 3, and 4. For line 5, I'll click on Other. And one of the common reasons why you would put something in the other line is if line 1 includes the sales tax, then you would put in the sales tax charge in line 5 to subtract it out. All right, we'll keep it at 50,000, and you'll notice my tax account automatically calculated the amount of state sales tax for us. Click on Next to continue. And this takes us to purchases subject to state use tax. For the purposes of our example, we'll keep this at 0. If you do have use tax to report, you would certainly put that here. And there's a link to the common questions page for use tax information on this screen as well that you can use if you need to research that. Let's continue. Next is, do you have any county tax to report? So most of the counties in Wisconsin do have a county tax, and what will happen here is it will automatically bring in a county that you have filed before. So in a previous sales tax return, I likely have filed for Milwaukee, and that will automatically show up, and I can put in that amount here. However, if you do need to add a county or counties, the way to do that is just to click in the empty box in the county column, and a drop-down will show up. So I can add as many counties as I wish and input an amount for county sales tax. For the purpose of the webinar, we'll just say that all of our sales were in Milwaukee County. And again, we didn't have any use tax, so I'll leave that at 0. And I'll click on Next. And next it'll ask, do you have any City of Milwaukee tax to report? For the purposes of the webinar, I'll say yes. In fact, all of our sales were in the City of Milwaukee. So I'll click on Yes and indicate that all of our sales We're in the city of Milwaukee, and no use tax again. I'll click on next, and that takes us to a summary page. And what you'll see here on the summary page is it shows you the calculations that have been made for state, county, and city sales tax. And it's also estimating the discount. So if you file and pay on time, you do receive a discount for filing and paying on time. And then it will give you a total amount due, which we will pay once we submit this. It's asking if I want a confirmation email. Sure, why not? And I'm ready to submit. So I'm going to click on submit. I'll agree to the terms listed here. And then it's going to take us to a confirmation page. So it's assigned a confirmation number, but what you'll notice is we've really only submitted the return. We haven't made a payment yet. When you file and pay sales and use tax, it's a two-step process. You're going to get a confirmation number for filing the return, and you'll get a separate confirmation number for paying the return. To do that, I'm going to click on Make a Payment. And it's going to ask which account type. I'm paying sales and use tax. Next. And would you like to apply your payment to a specific tax year or period? I'll say yes to this because I'm paying for the third quarter. It's not an amended return payment, so I'll click on next. And I'm going to leave the default at bank account. So it'll pull the funds from a checking or savings account, and there's no fees involved in that. Other payment methods, for example, for credit card, there is a fee involved with that. Or if you wish to mail a check, you can check here for creating a printable payment voucher, and then you can print a voucher out and mail that. But the vast majority of people choose bank account, so that's what we'll leave as the default, and click on next. And here's what the payment page looks like. So since I don't have a saved payment source, I'm going to add one here so we can show you that. You would add your routing number here first. In our training and testing database, I can just have one automatically input there and put in your appropriate account number. I'll just put in a fake number here for our purposes. Indicate whether it's a checking or savings account. And then it's going to ask if you wish to save this payment source for future use. And I'm going to say yes. And it indicates that this is the name of the account. So I'll be saving that account once I submit. And it'll ask for the payment date. So if I click on the little calendar here, what I can do is I could have this payment come out at the end of the month or really at any point in time in the future. So I could do that. For the purpose of the webinar, I'll just leave it at today's date. Here is the amount. I'm going to confirm the amount. And one other important point I'll make here is that you must authorize payment before 4 p.m. Central Time on the payment due date for timely payment. So 4 p.m. is when the funds get pulled from bank accounts. So you would need to get that scheduled or submit the payment before 4 p.m. for a timely payment on the due date. All right, I am ready to submit. Let's go ahead and do that. Agree it is. Now I have my second confirmation number. Again, for sales tax, you will get a confirmation number for filing and a confirmation number for paying. Let's return to the home page. And one more thing on sales tax I'll show you before turning it over to Nicole and withholding tax is I'm going to click on File Pay View Returns. And you'll notice the one we just submitted is pending. If I did need to amend a prior return, you'll see here it says view or amend return. And if I wanted to do that, I could go and I could click on amend here, and then I could go ahead and input the correct information for that amended return. And I'm going to return home. Actually, one more thing before I turn it over to Nicole. I'm going to click on the More tab. And the reason I'm doing that is underneath the More tab, underneath Submissions, what you'll now see is a Pending tab showed up. So it will show that I have a payment pending and a return pending. Those are the two that I just submitted for sales and use tax. All right, that's it for sales tax, and I'll turn you over to Nicole, and she's going to talk to you about withholding tax.
Thank you, Tom. Now we'll look at filing a W-T6 deposit report and the W-T7 annual reconciliation. From the home page, click on File, Pay, View Returns for withholding tax account. If you're an annual filer for withholding tax, you're not required to file W-T6 reports during the year, so you can just file the W-T7 at the end of the year without filing a W-T6 report. In most cases, you want to file and pay the W-T6 by locating the File W-T6 link option listed on this page. If you need to file a W-T6 amount with a zero amount, you can click on Yes for the first option and continue. So would you like to file a zero report? And then you just continue on. We're going to enter an amount for withholding. If you're just filing without making a payment, you can choose the no option for making a payment. In most cases, a payment is made while filing, so we'll continue to file and pay, and we'll click the next button. You'll want to click yes to receive a confirmation email. That is optional. And then next, in our example, we are going to choose a bank account. But let's take a look at the other two options first. Other payment methods. This is to pay with a different method such as a credit card. You'll need to submit the return and then choose make a payment from the confirmation page to pay with a credit card. We also give you the option to mail a payment. You would then want to submit the return and then choose Create Printable Voucher from the confirmation page. For our example, again, we're going to click on Bank Account and then click Next. But for our payment, we're going to use the saved payment source from paying the sales and use tax. If you want, you can choose a payment date in the future, like Tom stated, or for our example, we're going to choose today's date. You do have to confirm the amount and then submit. You want to agree to the attestation. We have our confirmation page. Notice how this is different from filing and paying the sales and use tax. For withholding tax, we have a single confirmation number for filing the return and making the payment. We'll press OK. We'll turn to the home page. Now let's return to the withholding account to review how to file the W-T7 annual reconciliation. You'll go down to the same link, the File, Pay, View Returns. and then you'll find the File W-2 Return link. This one's just letting us know that the year has not ended yet. We'll click the Next button. Now, please note the Filing Tips sections, where you can get more information, including the form instructions, common questions, EFW2 file transfer, and of course the withholding tax update link. Your 2025 W-2 annual withholding reconciliation and wage and information statements aren't due until January 31st of 2026. But for today, let's do an overview of how it's done. We'll offer several webinars in January of 2026 as refreshers as well. But first, let's discuss the scenario where you have no withholding tax to report on your W-2 reconciliation, but have W-2s to report. For this scenario, you'll want to answer no to the very first question. Do you have Wisconsin withholding to report? And then you can submit the W-2 with 0 amounts. However, we still need the W-2s, and you can submit them to us from the My Tax account from the W-2 1099 entry link from the home page. We'll show you how to do that in a few minutes. Before we continue, let's discuss the submission of W-2s and 1099s for Wisconsin. If you have 1099s with Wisconsin withholding tax, you'd report those on the W-2 here. If you have 1099s to submit to us that don't have withholding, don't report those 1099s on the W-2. Please only list information returns on the W-2 withholding reconciliation that have Wisconsin withholding tax. We do still need those information returns. However, they just don't need to be listed on the W-2. If you have W-2s or 1099s that you need to submit to us that don't have withholding, we'll show you how to do that a little later. But if you have further questions, please use the links in the filing tips section on this page, or call our customer service at 608-261-5338 for more information. For now, let's keep our example simple and just file a W-2 with a single W-2 with withholding. Now, there are several options to send the W-2s to the department. First option, the My Tax account. This first option is to key in the W-2s right now while we're filing the W-2 by checking this My Tax account box. The second option is via file transfer. Please note that you'd select file transfer if you've already entered the wage and information returns using the Enter W-2 1099 information link prior to filing the W-2. Otherwise, you would select the file transfer if you're going to upload an electronic file to us. If you need further assistance or have additional questions about electronic file transfers, click on the EFW2 file transfer link on this page. If you have 9 or less than a single type of information return, you can mail them to us without penalty, and you would select the paper option. For our example, we will key in the W-2 while filing the W-2. So we'd answer yes, that we have withholding. We selected the My Tax account, indicating we're going to key it in, and we'll hit the Next button. The next question is, are you entering W-2s? Yes, we are. Then you'll scroll down until you see the Add W-2 link. We'll click the Add W-2 and we'll fill in the information for the employee's W-2. Social Security number, name, and then the address. Then we're going to scroll down and you'll want to key in all of the financial information for the employee's W-2. But for our example today, well, to save a little time, we're just going to key in all the way at the bottom the state information. We'll put the total amount of wages in box 1, and then we'll scroll down just for our example, and we'll key in box 16 and box 17, the state income tax. Once you have entered all of this information, all of the financial information, you'll click Add. From here, we can click the pencil icon right here located down on the left to edit the W-2 we just entered, or we can click the double paper icon to copy the previous W-2, or we can click the X icon to actually delete the W-2. Now, if we had additional W-2s to key in, we could click Add W-2. But for our purposes, we only have one, so we'll click the Next button. We don't have any 1099s with withholding to report, so we'll click Next through the 1099 miscellaneous. We don't have any. The 1099 NECs, that's selected no, we do not have any. And then 1099 Rs, we don't have any of those as well. Now, if you see, because we keyed in the W-2 in the My Tax Account, lines 1 through 5 for us are actually already pre-filled based on the information we entered in the previous steps. Now, since this form isn't due until January of next year, we're actually just going to save this. We can click Save Draft without submitting. And then we'll finish later, and that'll be saved in our draft submissions. Now we're going to go back to the home page, and we're going to click on, remember that link I was going to tell you about, the Enter W-2 1099 information link, which is located directly under the File Pay View Returns link. So for this, if you need to report W-2s or 1099s without withholding, or file a corrected W-2 or 1099, you can do that by using this Enter W-2 1099 information link. This tool can be especially helpful for those of you that don't have a withholding tax account, but need to submit W-2s or 1099s to the department that don't have Wisconsin withholding. Keep in mind, this satisfies the state filing requirement, not the federal filing requirement for information returns. We'd also like to note these forms are not printable from our site. But let's see what it looks like to key in a 1099 NEC. So you'll click on the Enter W-2 1099 link, and of course the year, 2025, we are not entering corrected W-2s, so we'll press Next. We don't need that W-2 here. Don't have a 1099 miscellaneous, but we do have a 1099 NEC. Now, just like the W-2, we'll start off by keying in the recipient's information, Social Security number, name, street address, all right. Then we'll key in all the financial information on the form. Box 1, Box 7, the state income. And once that's completed, then we click Add, just like the W-2. If you have several forms to key in, or if you get interrupted while working on this, you can click the Save Draft and continue editing. That will save a draft of your entries in case you have to take a phone call or the app simply times out. If you're going to leave and continue later, you can choose Finish Later, and you can come back and pick up right where you left off. You'll be able to click that by searching Submissions link from the More tab up here on the home page. So we'll click the More tab, and then here's our submissions down in the lower left-hand corner under Search Submissions. And here are our 2 entries, the W-T7 for 2025 and our W-2 1099. This is our NEC. You'll just click Continue Editing, and you pick up right where you left off. And there is our saved NEC. Well, that's it for withholding. So let's send it back to Gianna for a few closing remarks.
Thank you, Nicole, and thank you to everyone for joining us. If you have any more questions, please use the contact information on the screen. We'll stick around for a few minutes to finish answering the questions in the chat queue. There's also a brief exit survey when you leave the webinar. But before we go, just a couple reminders. Whenever your email or contact information changes, please update it on the Manage My Profile page. Please don't share your login information or password with any other MyTaxAccount users. If you want another person to have access to the business tax accounts, have them register for their own MyTaxAccount. A recorded version of this webinar will be available shortly on our training page. Feel free to share it with colleagues who could not attend the webinar today. Thanks again for attending, and have a great day.